All right, we now have a quorum. It is just past 7 o'clock. I will officially call this meeting of the IT Committee to order. I'll begin with a roll call of the members. Bob Hassinger, Amar Clark,
Here.
Bob Carroll is absent so far. Hopefully he may join us. Alan Baker, Dave Robbins is present. Alan Baker had informed us that he had a conflict tonight, so he will not be joining us. But since we do have a quorum, let's proceed with our business. Our first agenda item, as always, is public input. We don't seem to have any members of the public attending on Zoom, but if any one of us has something to offer that counts as public input as opposed to anything on our agenda, now would be the time. Mr. Carroll is joining us, so I'll shut my mouth for just a moment. Good evening, Bob Carroll. Can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're all present and accounted for, with the exception of Alan Baker, who informed us he had a conflict and wouldn't be able to be with us tonight. So proceeding with our agenda, Bob Carroll, did you have anything to offer that counts as public input?
I do not.
Okay, so let me just, just referring to my agenda here. The next agenda item is updates from the town administrator. Evan, if you have anything to update the committee with respect to ongoing projects and so on. The following agenda item is the main topic of tonight, which is discussions of policies and related matters. But any other general updates, Evan?
Yep. So I won't go into the specifics of it, but we are working with our cyber insurance carrier to make some updates to our multi-factor authentication program. We had done a considerable amount of work getting that spun up. And then the insurance folks threw us a curveball mid-fiscal year. And we have to roll out some more policy there and some little more infrastructure. We're, just to be clear, and I'm not going to go too far into the security side of things, we're in great shape. I don't have any concerns with where we are. But in order to keep our policy, we just have to do a bit more. I met with the school department today, and I feel like they're, as usual, IT wise, they're ahead of us. But we both pretty much need to be at that same level for July 1st for us to be able to continue to have our cybersecurity insurance. So we're going to be working with the school department in the next few months just to make sure we've ticked all the boxes that insurance wants to see and go from there. Complicating factors on our side, always with multi-factor, is unions and use of personal devices, the phone call versus the app versus a fob, those types of conversations. So we're going to be navigating that in the next couple months.
Get the secret question.
Yeah, sure.
Right. So that could be one of the factors, right?
Yep. So I'm in talks now because the folks from the insurance company that I met with are the insurance folks. They're not the technical side of the house people. And so my conversations with them really have led me to ask to go to some people with some more expertise to make sure that what direction we go in is going to comply with what they are looking for. So a lot of what they're telling us now is they want a separate device so that, somebody walks into an office and has the person's personal information. They would also need that secondary device to be able to log in. So, no like ringing the desk phone for a password, that kind of stuff. So, we'll, right now everybody's using, their cell phones and, Microsoft Authenticator. That's our chosen method right now, but, I do have some departments that I think from a union standpoint aren't gonna go for any broader, implementation. So we'll look at other solutions. But yeah, we're working with CMD. We just actually Friday I just finished a grant for $10,000 to go towards the project. So that'll be helpful, and that's a lock pretty much. Every time I've applied for it, we've just gotten it. Um, so yeah, so more to come. I'm sure next month, when you meet in January, I'll have a better roadmap of where we're going, and maybe we do that in executive session. Just so we're not talking about what that rollout looks like in open session. Otherwise, I don't really have any major IT updates other than, some kind of mundane stuff. So I'm replacing a 20-year-old air conditioner unit in the data closet with a mini split, and we've ordered new shelving and a desk, and we're gonna refurb that room so that it's actually functional. Our IT people can be in there. Still continuing to work on cleaning up patch stuff. We've broadened the Wi-Fi connectivity throughout the municipal center. We've added several more hotspots, which has helped quite a bit. Just kind of day-to-day stuff, nothing really sexy to report.
Okay, so any questions? If not,
Um,
the main topic for discussion this evening was following up on our brief discussion last month on IT policies, and the committee, we sort of wrapped up our discussion last month with the conclusion that we wanted to get a better sense from you, Evan, as to the topic. It's pretty broad topic area, and we kind of wanted to get we work with you, Evan, and you and I discussed this briefly a couple of weeks ago, and get a sense of what the committee can do best to further your goals, Evan, in terms of policies, and what's sort of the next thing that we should be working on with you. And I think we ended up with at least a couple of possibilities. So the committee, rather than just forging ahead with our own ideas of what we might want, we thought it might be worthwhile to kind of collaborate in that, and agree on a direction in which the committee can be of the most value to you, Evan.
Yeah. And so Dave, if I go off track on what we discussed, reel me back in.
Yeah, I
like,
think
it's only Wednesday. It's been a long week.
Yeah. Yeah, my recollection is that you and I, we sort of zeroed in on two relatively high priority topic areas. One, it would be updating all the written IT policies, some of which are sadly out of date.
Mhm.
And the other is we talked some around the topic of taking an inventory, and and kind of developing a strategic plan going forward for various IT applications and equipment uh, beyond the desktops and laptops, for which you have a pretty robust program already. But there were some other areas, Evan, that you felt that we you really don't have a very well developed strategic plan going forward.
Right. Thank you, Dave, because that was neither of the two things that I was remembering us talking about. So that's good though. Those are both that's where you refreshed me. So
no guarantee that I'm remembering it correctly either.
I think you generally remember better than I do, which is probably an issue. But anyways, we so obviously, so those are the two things. One, since we've last talked, Dave, I had met a couple of IT directors from other municipalities here in the Commonwealth. And so what I've done is requested from them their entire repertoire of municipal IT policy. And so what I was thinking in that realm is that we would take those, I would have someone in my office not rewrite them, but you know, basically steal all of them and change the names to Grafton, and we would use those to mirror against what we already have, but also use that as a starting place for policy review. Because, you know, a lot of not only are our policies outdated, but we're guaranteed to be missing some important components that I think a larger community that has dedicated IT staff likely already has captured. So that's one place that I think would be good, and I'm hoping that we don't reinvent the wheel on that. But I also, you know, that's not my technical world, so some of that language I'm sure will have to be tweaked. As far as the strategic plan, that's something that I'm really keen to get the IT committee's input in. It actually stems from comments that Bob, you had made, Bob Carroll, back when we first met with Charlie at CMD. And, you know, you were talking about basically having a map of infrastructure and I'm not using the right words. That's for sure.
Yeah, you get it fairly close, but yeah, roadmap, right?
Right.
Where do we want to go? What are the priorities, right? And then somehow attach, or, you know, the best as you can figure out the funding, right? Because everyone wants to do everything, but unfortunately funding gets in the way. But yeah, and some of it's expensive, some of it's cheap, but that's where you look at the low hanging fruit and, you know, do a risk-based analysis, right? Where's the biggest risk, and, you know, where the bad actors going to come in and all that sort of stuff. So, and I did some digging from last time too, and I've got a couple, you know, so again, kind of like what you're doing with the policies and standards, you wouldn't be starting from zero, right? You would, you know, do a same but, or we won't call it plagiarizing, but, you know, in the consulting world, it's the same but.
Right. PAs just call it stealing.
Right. Well,
we're all okay with it.
Freedom of information and public information, so.
Right. So yeah, that really is what it stems from. And I think that's something that, you know, we are sorely lacking. And it seems like most of the time when a catastrophic failure occurs or a replacement needs to happen, it's always a surprise and an emergency. And we've gotten past a lot of that. I you know, looking back to where we were 3 years ago, and, you know, failed servers and all the rest of the stuff that went along with it, we're stable. But if we just remain static, then we're gonna go right back to where we were. So there's that, and I think that, you know, I was talking, Dave and I were talking, and, you know, switches and servers, I understand enough to know what people are talking about generally. There's a ton of fiber infrastructure, and I know absolutely nothing about that, and what technologies have changed, and what the shelf life or life expectancy of some of those components are. And so, you know, part of it too is building our inventory, because you know, in some ways I don't know where our points of failure are going to be. You know, besides the easier to understand stuff such as servers and switches, and you know, I can go in and see what's blinking and what's not blinking and generally fumble my way around. But you know, there's other areas that I don't understand at all. So I guess it's really a matter of what the committee's interested in, and also, looking at a timeline, to, as far as infrastructure goes and strategic planning, we're gonna have to bring CMD and Charlie in on that conversation. Because they're gonna have to provide some resources and some cost analysis and stuff like that. And then the policy piece is probably, pick two and discuss, and then pick two and discuss, and pick two and discuss, and kind of pick our
Yeah,
way through.
it sounds like the identity and access management policy would be at the top based on what you're saying for the insurance folks and
Yep.
two-factor, multi-factor. So
Correct.
that's the top of the heap.
Yep, exactly.
When you said fiber, were you thinking of the F-man, the network around the town, or do you have fiber?
No, I'm specifically talking about F-man, and
Okay.
essentially with F-man, by and large, everything was built out. We have no maintenance plan or, anything that goes with that.
Actually, there is. Yeah, with the people who built it. There's been an issue about whether they were getting paid or not.
They're not getting paid by me.
Yeah, but I think that the ball got dropped a while. But there's been correspondence, particularly with Fiona, because we've been going around about this putting.
Right.
the-
But none of those folks are in any of my physical plant anywhere. The head ends or whatever you call them. Nobody comes in and
no,
checks anything or.
no, yeah, that's right. They're covering if something needs to be done. They they can. They're there to do it like somebody runs into a telephone pole.
Right.
They come
Yes,
fix
we
it.
have
But-
that
but-
part covered, but as far as
Yeah.
like, hey, your infrastructure in this, at this demarc is ancient and you need to think about replacing it with XYZ,
Yeah. Well,
we haven't done.
you if you haven't, you might want to have a little contact with the folks over there at
Comtrack.
Track. And either they'll say, "Yeah, we're here to, we can help you," or go that way.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it sounds like part of an issue there is simply who's responsible for what.
right.
I mean,
Yep, for sure.
yeah. Comtract has basically taken care of what, from my old telecom background, we call the outside plant, which is the cables, their attachments to the poles, any splice points or junction boxes, but the electronics or the optoelectronics at each end of the fiber is another whole story.
Right.
In the server room there, the fiber comes up into the server room on a rack there, and there's some electronics there that convert the light into electricity. And then out at the other ends, there's, whatever equipment sits, it plugs into the fiber at that end and turns that back into Ethernet or whatever. Who's responsible for what sits at the end of the fiber?
Yeah, they supplied and installed and set up the gear.
Right.
So,
Right.
When you have a chance.
Yep. So it's a matter of, I think that would be part of our planning process is what is there now? Is that adequate or is that outdated, or is it like, well, there's your main point of failure and we don't know that. And then what does replacement of that look like, cost, and how do we fund that over time?
Well, I think you can get a little help, at least to start.
Yeah.
Oh, Linda said it's always outdated. By the time it's in, it's outdated.
Yeah. So would we want to, Mr. Chair, would you want to, start in January with, kind of like a the policy set from the other town's IT departments that I'm able to gather.
Yeah, I think, right on that side of things, the policy from the policy angle, yeah. That would be an excellent starting point, at least it seems to me, to take, what do we currently have for policies? What have we found, what examples do we have to work from? Because,
Mhm.
yeah, I agree. I'm not in favor of reinventing wheels. If I can find a good enough wheel, I'll use it. And so that would be, I think, a good starting point to look over what we currently have, what we've gotten from the other towns, which are surely a lot more up to date than what we have. And let's, sort of prioritize what policies most need to be brought up to date, because you're not going to do them all at once. But yeah, and I think we mentioned earlier that a likely very high priority would be the one related to the multi-factor authentication.
Mhm.
But yeah, prioritize what needs to be updated and developed. But that would provide a good starting point with what you've been able to get from other IT directors, plus what we already have in hand. And yeah, I think we could easily start that in January. And so, then that will take some time to develop, but also that's probably a pretty well-defined task in terms of, it shouldn't take more than a few months probably to work through most of that. And on the other major, task of, strategic planning and, getting a good handle on what we currently have, what we're prepared for, what we need to, the gaps that we need to fill in, like these questions about who's responsible for what, and the fiber equipment in particular, which you don't, you said you really don't know anything about. So there's an open question there is, does that equipment need to be up to date or updated, or is it, what's the expected lifetime of what we have there? Inventorying everything else that we have, starting to put that, we start to put that together, I guess, and there's potentially a lot that can be brought into that, but you got to start somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, the only, I think you got most of it, David. The only addition would be, when you go through the policies, identify any gaps, ones we
Yes.
don't have. And that aren't in what we receive or can beg, borrow, and steal from others, right?
Right.
Yeah, but I had that in mind, but I wasn't very explicit about that. I mean, yeah, I'm not assuming that we're necessarily going to get what to us looks like a complete set of example policies. That yeah, we'll review what we have, we'll review what we've been able to obtain from elsewhere. But yeah, and all of that, we'll want to prioritize, identify gaps, certainly.
Okay. And then do we want to try in January to get Charlie and Mark in the meeting and start talking about what information we're going to need to be able to come up with a plan, a strategic plan type of approach?
What do you think, guys?
Um,
I'm a little bit less clear on how best to get started on that.
so what I would suggest, having a couple of examples, what we could do maybe is circulate like just the table of contents, right? And a framework, and then have that as a starting point and run that by them, and then see if they think that they are prepared or could support that in January, right? And have them identify, where they could contribute, right? At first, all of us agree, what's in, what's out kind of thing, right? Because again, some of these may be overkill, they may not be robust enough, right? We want to right size it for Grafton.
Right. Okay.
So how do we do that? I have these. Do I just send it to us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair. You
Yep.
can answer
Yeah,
that.
I mean, if you're right. So, Bob, if you have something that would be, sort of a good jumping off point for us.
Right, and I'll
Yes,
just, I'll rip out all the text and everything and just circulate the TOC, so.
Yeah, circulate that, and then we can, we can go over that at our January meeting and, sort of use that as a jumping off point to where we want to go. And I don't know, sounds to me like since since that's, at least some of us, haven't looked at that recently, if at all. If we can work that in January and figure out how and where to get Charlie and company involved and who wants to do what.
Okay, and we're back to being Microsoft Shop, not
Yes.
Google. Okay,
Yep. Yeah, we are all 365 now.
so Word is good.
Yep, Word is good.
Yep. And so our next meeting would be January 3rd, right after the new year. Is that going to be too soon, given the holidays?
Yeah, because we're gonna lose a ton of time in between there, honestly.
Yes, there's
With vacation.
right. My experience when I was working was the last couple of weeks of December, we basically, pretty much wrote those weeks off.
Yeah, everything's on production blackouts, especially with, SOX compliance and all the closing of the books and everything, right, and doing all the final runs, so yeah, it's dead.
Yep. So for our next meeting, would it be preferable to plan on maybe the second Wednesday of January? Just had my
I-
calendar.
I vote for that.
January 10th.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's cool. Yeah.
Okay.
I've kind of been found it less than workable sometimes to have a meeting right after the first of the year. But yeah, so January 10th, Evan will circulate the policy documents that he has available. We'll plan on reviewing those and getting to work in that direction. Bob will circulate that table of contents for that. And we'll take those two as our major work items for the January meeting.
All right.
Okay. Let it be done, let it be written.
Make it
Little
so,
better.
as somebody says.
Yeah. Excellent.
Anything else?
Awesome. I was going to ask Evan, when can we get our hands on some of these other towns' policies? Is that something that we'll be able to look at, or?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So what my plan is, I'm just gonna create a OneDrive folder, IT committee documents, and make everyone from the committee an editor, and then we'll just dump everything in there. And I can give Dave the heads up that we're doing that, and then he can push out just notification to all of you that there's new stuff in there or whatever.
Well, if you're gonna have that folder, I'll just put in this document thing, right? And
Yep.
share a link out to everybody.
Yep, I can set that up tonight.
Yep. Yeah,
Awesome.
the only caveat to having a shared folder like that with a committee is that we have to take care that we don't use that as a means of deliberating outside of the context of an open meeting,
Right.
which would mean,
It's just a conveyance of material.
yeah, putting a document up there and then all of us editing it between meetings could be problematic from an open meeting perspective. As long as we
Right.
take care not to use that as a means to circumvent the open meeting law, just as a means of sharing information for the purpose of discussing it and reviewing it at meetings.
I think
Yeah.
one Office and OneDrive log, I mean, you can monitor and that's all logged anyway. So
Yep.
if you could see if anyone was looking to make any changes.
Absolutely.
So, all right, so I think we've got our marching orders pretty well set for our next meeting. Anything else along, on these topics that we need to discuss right now? If not, the only other agenda item we have is minutes of the previous meeting, and Alan obviously was not able to circulate those for us in time for review. And then we have as always, a potential executive session on our agenda, just in case. But we have no business that requires an executive session.
Right.
So if we're all good, and I made a note to myself that Evan may have a topic for discussion under executive session at the next meeting or some future meeting, but that's why we keep it on the agenda just in case.
Very
Move
good.
to adjourn.
I think it sounds like we're all done for tonight. And
Yeah.
a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I think that's what I just tried to say.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded that this meeting be adjourned. Mr. Hassinger,
All right.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Carroll,
I.
and Mr. Robbins votes aye. Motion carried unanimously. The meeting is adjourned.